Were we brothers at all? I think the main Russian mistake with regard to Ukrainians is to think that they are just a kind of us. Since the collapse of Kievan Rus, the local population has managed to go through a completely different historical path, to lose almost all ties with Novgorod and Zalesie, where the Galician Metropolis, the artels of craftsmen, and a considerable part of the population went at one time. Those who remained in the lands of Kiev, Chernihiv and Galician Rus lived between Poland, Lithuania, Moldavia, the Golden Horde and Turkey, and Moscow was somewhere very far away, closer to Sweden and Livonia. The same Khmelnitsky hardly took Moscow seriously until the last moment and contacted her rather out of desperation. Yes, it was probably a meeting of brothers, but like in Indian films, separated in infancy with the death of their common father, ancient Russia. One turned out to be a rude soldier with an oblique fathom in his shoulders, the other was a well-read and eccentric scribe, and here they were, looking at each other and not believing their eyes, and one awkwardly raising his hand, feeling the other's face. At that time, we were the younger ones. With Little Russia, Russia got a lot of completely unfamiliar things, such as higher education, and an attempt to fit Moscow orthodoxy to the Kiev model turned into a split. The northern brother, communicating with the southern one, became interested in sciences and arts himself, and soon hired Germans as his governesses, and now he is no longer an earthy warrior in a saber, but a brilliant commander in curls and a uniform. His southern brother remained the same as he was. And if the first decades after the ruins of the two Rus were approximately equivalent and therefore two-edged, then since Peter's time their scales have become incomparable, and from the second half of the country, Ukraine began to turn into an appendage. In all wars on the territory of Ukraine, without exception, the sympathies of too many Ukrainians were not on our side to ignore this. In all epochs, separatism existed here, during periods of upheaval, which covered most of the people, and hetmans, directories, rada, national battalions appeared as if out of nowhere. Russians, of course, a lot of Ukrainians, from writer Gogol to partisan Kovpak, from missionary Leshchinsky to politicians Razumovsky, from mechanic Glushko to teacher Makarenko, have served Russia as few of the born Russians, but Russian is not an adjective for nothing. How many Tatars, Armenians, Poles, Germans, Jews have served Russia in this way? The French managed to integrate Provence, and the Prussians managed to integrate all sorts of Saxony and Bavaria in much less time than Ukraine spent as part of Russia. Even if Russia had managed to avoid great upheavals, most likely Ukraine would now be teetering somewhere on the edge, like Scotland, Catalonia or French Canada in their countries. But still, by nature and language, there are no people outside the current Russian Federation closer to Russians than Ukrainians, and Kharkiv residents have clearly more in common with Rostov residents than Kharkiv residents with Lviv residents, and Rostov residents with Archangel City residents. But maybe this has let us down, giving the illusion that we will be able to become one people. Maybe if the phrase Ukraine is not Russia, the Russians were the first to say it, then it wouldn't have come to "we'll never be brothers."